104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Now, it's time for Ned Talk.
Let me be the first of your radio friends to tell you Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and all the good tidings that I can pass along to you. Here we are on a Christmas morning. Ned, how are you?
Well, I must admit to you, this is the first Christmas morning that we have done one of these shows. Now, we've done others on Christmas morning, but not this one. So, yes, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Josh Roberts is with us. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate, I hope you're celebrating it well.
Yes, absolutely. And the reason we're here is there's a Monday Christmas edition of the Kansas City Chiefs today as they get set to take on the Las Vegas Raiders in Arrowhead Stadium. GEHA Field, or whatever you say, however you say it. GEHA Field.
You guys are more correct than I am. It's Arrowhead Stadium.
It's Arrowhead
it'll
Stadium.
always be Arrowhead to all of us, I think.
That's right. So a couple of things I want to pass along to everybody. First of all, we're brought to you by The Dive on Patton Street, the best place to take in the Chiefs downtown. And also, I want to pass along, too, that if you'd like to text us a message, you could do so at 417-863-7104. 863-7104. You can text us right now. If you got a question, a suggestion, a message, please be nice. It is Christmas, all right?
Let's elaborate just a little. This is new. This whole system is new now.
Yep, it's brand new. There's several people that have been using it over the last couple of weeks. Some very nice Christmas messages out there from people. So it's very nice, and you can text us and send us messages that way. We'll be glad to try to look into that as we do the show. And let's get right to it. Let's talk a little bit about the Chiefs last week and their game against the Patriots. What can you take away from this, Ned?
The fact that the Chiefs played methodical football and did what they had to do to win the game. The Patriots are not bad. They're not balanced very well, and that's part of their problem. But the Chiefs knew if they played within themselves, didn't do anything extraordinary, didn't have to do anything extraordinary, didn't have Pacheco in, he will be today, didn't have Pacheco as a running back. So they balanced their attack and played very well against a team that really was capable of pulling an upset. But Kansas City wouldn't let that happen. They've finally, I think, gentlemen, begun to, and it's mostly Mahomes, absorb the thought that he can't go deep. He just simply does not have the deep receivers. So as a result, he's dinking and dunking and taking the team down the field and mixing up the running and the passing and succeeding with doing that. And I think that's how the Chiefs will win it today.
One of the things we talked about last week was him not spreading the ball around. That was not the case this last week. He spread the ball around quite a bit. I think there were 10 different receivers that caught passes in the course of the game.
I find this, now keep in mind, I'm an old-timer, so I'm conspiratorial in a lot of respects. But they're sitting a player today, apparently. And I'm sure they went to that player, Mr. Tony, and said, boy, it's too bad about your hip. Why not? What about my hip? Well, you have a hip injury. No, I don't. Oh, yes, you do. So they're sitting him aside. And I think that's more because Mahomes was so angry at him last week. Mahomes is not demonstrative usually on the field, but he was noticeably angered by the fact that Tony had dropped a couple passes, had one intercepted when it bounced off his hands and then his shoulder pad, and the Patriots were able to pick it off. This guy is simply either having a star-crossed year or he is not capable, one or the other.
Well, they're kind of banged up, Josh, right now in that receiving core. Sky Moore is out along with Tony. McCole Hardeman continues to be out. And to me, the biggest one that's out this week and for the rest of the season, and or at least the rest of the regular season, is Jarrett McKinnon.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because he was getting some good carries and doing some good things. It's good that Pacheco's back because if they were both out, that would be tough to do because they do running back by committee, and they do a good job with it. And this game against the Patriots, they, like Ned said, they were very methodical, and they ran the ball effectively. They didn't try to do the long ball. They moved the ball effectively, and at one point it was 27-10, and they controlled the game.
When you look at McKinnon, too, one of the things that he's really big for the Chiefs is he's their third down back. He's the guy they go to when they need a big play at third down.
We've talked about this before, though, guys. The injury that he has, which is a nagging one, it's chronic. It's a groin injury, but it shouldn't be unexpected. The guy is 31 years old, and as a running back, that's way out of his chronological realm because they're usually 24, 25, 26, somewhere around there, the good running backs. And McKinnon has been able to overcome that age barrier, if you can call it that, and make himself very available to the Chiefs. However, injuries like that are going to happen to him.
True.
The true positive thing about that game, too, was we talked about it quite a bit. Patriots have a very good defense.
Oh, yes.
Very good defense. They're losing games by low-scoring games, and they beat the Broncos.
And they won last night.
They won last night. They won a big game last night over the Broncos. But this is a team that has a good defense, and you could take away that the Chiefs made that defense look pretty bad.
They did. And I thought played well and doing, as I said, what they had to get a win. 27-17 is a solid victory. Now, today, this Raiders team is a puzzle. They can do a lot of things. The Chiefs beat them, 31-17 or something, 30-17, whatever it was last time they played down in Las Vegas. But the Raiders team knows fully well this is an arch rivalry. They would love nothing better than to go into Arrowhead and come up with a victory. And they do have the component parts to do that, but they are not consistent with that. Right. Aiden O'Connell, who will probably get the start today at quarterback's good. He's thrown for 1,000 yards this year in really a relief position more than anything else, taking over for Garoppolo. But the fact is that they do have, if they have Josh Jacobs back today, and they will, Alabama kid, he can play. They've got really pretty good team. But the fact is it is not a consistent team. They don't go out there and play 60 minutes of football, and that's what gets them.
Right.
Well, you look at Josh. You look at them, and there was a game that I think it was 3 weeks ago. They lost 3-0.
3-0, yeah.
And then the following week, they dismantled the Chargers.
Yeah, they scored 63 the next week on the Chargers.
So
that is the epitome of inconsistency. To lose a game 3-0 and then score 63 points in the next week.
Well,
what's going on?
Keep in mind the 63 points is also a product of 5 key turnovers by the Chargers.
Exactly, but they were able to score.
Mm-hmm. Ned, would you call the Raiders a wounded animal?
No, I don't think so. Because, again, we have to point out, I think they have some talented athletes, but they don't have a great number of them. They don't play like they're wounded. It doesn't look as though they can come back and charge in and get a victory and suck it up and so forth and so on. They just don't play consistent football. And the wounded teams do play. They're not capable. The Raiders are capable. They have athletes on there. They just simply do not have, in my opinion, the desire nor the consistency. Now, having said that, watch them come out today and give the Chiefs a tough time, although I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, they're playing for their coach's job. Antonio Pierce took over, and there's a lot of guys that want him as the head coach of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a lot of talk in the NFL about him not getting that job, that there's other people in line for that job. So that's what scares me about this game today.
Who knows what Mr. Davis Jr. thinks? I'm not sure he does think. This guy, Antonio Pierce, is a pretty good coach. He's done a nice job with the team. He was their defensive coordinator, has the defense playing pretty well. But, again, you've got to get out there and give it 60 minutes, and I don't see that happening with this team.
Josh, your thoughts on the Raiders?
Well, I think they've got a lot of talent on that team because you can look at their offensive players and you can look at they've got, what's that guy, Mac? Is that his name? No, not
Max. Max Crosby.
Yeah, Max Crosby.
Crosby,
is stellar.
Yeah. But he's also injured, though.
Yeah, okay. Well, so that's the problem. I mean, they have the ability and they come out and lay eggs all the time too. But here's what I'll say about today's game. This is the best rivalry for the Chiefs. The Chiefs-Raiders rivalry has always been the one that gets everybody amped up. The first time I ever saw a Chiefs-Raiders game at Arrowhead, there were so many fights in the stands that I couldn't focus on the game. I mean, I looked up in the upper deck, and there was a guy holding another guy over the side of the rail, punching him in the face. If he had let go of him, he would have fallen to his death. that's the Raiders-Chiefs rivalry. That's the way it used to be anyway. I know they try to, rein it in, but they're going to get the best that the Raiders have to offer today. So the Chiefs need to be ready.
That's kind of interesting. I admitted a few weeks back that I grew up here as a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Raiders view the Chiefs as that big of a rival.
Interesting.
I think that if you're a Raiders fan, you probably look more towards the Broncos.
Yeah, I could see that because in the 80s, the Chiefs were and also ran, and the Broncos and the Raiders were.
The Raiders been also ran for 40 years now.
Well, but the Raiders won Super Bowls. The Raiders won at least one Super Bowl in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then the Broncos went to a bunch of Super Bowls and lost them in the 80s, right? Wasn't that in the 80s?
Yeah, in the 80s.
Yeah.
And you have to remember John Madden
that makes
had
sense.
some very good years with the Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
And they were at one time good. Gosh, I'll not forget, and this is going way back, but I think it was 68, 69, somewhere around there, where Lenny Dawson kept the ball, key game, tie game, or whatever it was, late in the season, kept the ball on a run and got blasted. Got pushed out of bounds and then blasted by Big Ben Davidson. Ooh. And here comes Otis Taylor up and takes a swing at Ben Davidson, which is not a good thing because he's huge. And then here come the benches. It was an all-out brawl that lasted a good 10 minutes. I remember that so very well.
But see, I even remember Marcus Allen, Jim Plunkett.
Yeah.
Tom Flores was their coach back then.
Yeah.
Howie Long was unstoppable on defense in his heyday.
And Biletnikoff and all these guys who were playing for them.
So they had that transition of great players, and then it stopped after that era.
Cliff Branch. Gee, they had
it
Mark
rough
Van
since
Egan,
then.
Ken
Van Egan,
Stabler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Todd
Christensen.
The thing with the Raiders in the 70s was that you could predict what they were going to do. They were going to run left because they had the greatest left side of an offensive line ever.
With
Art Shell, Gene Upshaw.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Dalby was their center.
Yeah.
And they were going to run left twice, and then they were going to throw on third down. They were always going to do that. John Madden was very simple, and it was going to go left. It was going to go to Cliff Branch on the left side.
Didn't Lyle Alzado play for them, too?
Lyle Alzado played for them?
He did, yeah.
Ted Mad Stork Hendricks.
Yeah.
The Mad Stork. You remember Hendricks?
Yep.
Was he 6'4", 6'5", at a linebacker? He was all over the place.
Jack
Tatum, the assassin.
John Matuzak played for him.
Chester Lester Hayes, the molester that had stickum all over his arms.
Lester Hayes and Michael Haynes. Those were their D-backs. Those guys were both shut down.
Yeah, and then you had two safeties that if you caught the ball back there, you didn't want to be hit by them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those 70s Raiders teams really, really, really good.
I remember I had a football card of Lester Hayes, and there was it looked like he had
stickum all over them.
He had so much stickum on his hands, it looked like he had bread dough on his hands.
You're listening to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show, getting you set for the Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. Still doesn't sound right. That's coming up at noon right here on 104.7 The Cave. Show's brought to you by The Dive. I'm Pat, and you got a question, a suggestion, a comment. You can make that text at 417-863-7104. What do you expect to see from the Chiefs today? First of all, we've got a picture from Jake, our friend Jake, who occasionally does the show with us. Whenever the moons align right, he does the show with us. And I can't tell if it's just so cold his face turned red or if he painted his face red. I'm not sure.
Like, Jake, are you okay?
It almost looks like he painted it to me.
Yeah. Well, he didn't do a very good job. He didn't do a good job. I looks like he may be sick or he's an Oompa Loompa. Oompa Loompa.
Well, I do know it is cooler up in Kansas City than they expected it to be today. They thought it might be in the 60s, but it is not. It's much cooler. It isn't that cold. Not for a face to turn that red. No,
not Oompa Loompa. It's not Oompa Loompa cold. So what do you expect to see from the Chiefs today?
I think the same? Again, the same thing. I think they have to play within themselves. They know fully well the Raiders have an average defense. I wouldn't call it the greatest, but they can get after you and they can hit. And I fully expect that Kansas City will come out and use the same philosophy from an offensive standpoint that they did against the Patriots, and that's dink and dunk and run for the key first downs and so forth and so on, and throw to your open receivers, one of whom will be Kelsey. But the fact is that if they play that kind of cerebral game and not try to go all out and make the big play and bring the crowd to its feet and have a receiver drop the ball.
Right.
If they can do and maintain that kind of consistency, they should win. And again, the Raiders, I think, will play very tough. I don't think Las Vegas will come in and lie down. But again, they don't have a tendency to play the entire 60 minutes. They take time off.
We have been waiting for somebody to stand up in this receiving corps and say, I am the guy. Last week, probably the closest week to Rashee Rice making that statement, Josh.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he had a great game. He caught some big passes, and I hope that continues because he's young. I mean, he could develop into a top-tier receiver and be that guy, I think, which would be nice. But I agree with Ned. I think if they play the game they played last week, consistent running, short passes, move the ball down the field, score touchdowns, then I don't think the Raiders can beat them. But the Raiders, like I said, the Raiders are going to give them everything they've got. I think you're going to see a good Raiders team today.
We had a Marquez Valdez-Scantling sighting last week.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. That's like rare than seeing.
What did he have, one catch?
Or rarer than seeing Bigfoot.
Yes.
Is to see a Scantling catch during the game.
Yeah, a catch.
We always talk about the season in quarters. The schedule favors the Chiefs. Now, I would have thought at the beginning of the season maybe you'd look at this last 4 games and you go, "Wow, they're going to be tough," but they're not. Okay, let's just say that they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You're right about that. Okay, they've got Las Vegas today. Next week, they've got Cincinnati. Cincinnati doesn't have Joe Burrow. They're also banged up in their receiving corps.
And they're fading.
They're fading. They lost bad yesterday. Who did they lose to yesterday? Do you remember that?
It was the Jets, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. I can't remember.
They lost to somebody yesterday, and it was a surprising loss. And then there's the Chargers.
Right.
Oh, boy.
They quit. Chargers are.
They're done.
They just don't. They go out there and go through the motions. The Los Angeles Ball Club, again, they'll get out there and tackle and try to score, but the internal desire is not there. They've lost it as well. That's where the Chiefs have a big advantage over everybody, including the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browning kid is not a bad quarterback. He was an All-American at Washington. He can get things done, but again, when you don't have your leader in there, and that's going to be the major difference. Cincinnati can be troublesome next week. I don't think they will be, but it is possible. But I don't see the Chargers, the last game of the season, regular season, I don't see them as mounting any kind of threat at all, even playing out at SoFi Stadium.
2 of these last 3 games at home, 2 for the Chiefs today and next week versus the Bengals, and then the final game of the season. Have they set that yet? That's still a TBD game, or
it is to be announced. And
okay.
Again, I think a lot of it depends on what the bearing is. For instance, if the Chiefs do happen to lose one of these 2 games and they're on the borderline of having home field, I think they may flex that one to a night game, but it usually has to be done quite a ways ahead of time, and I think we're within that boundary now.
You know, Alec is yelling at his radio because it was the Steelers that beat
okay. Yeah, no.
34-11.
Alec's not even listening to the radio this morning. He's not. He's probably still in his PJs
right,
somewhere.
Yeah, the Steelers beat them 34-11. So
yeah, that's
bad.
that was a stunning defeat, especially for a Steelers team that's not known for
scoring anything.
Their
right
offense.
Now.
Okay, when we come back, we'll figure out something to talk about. It is Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show brought to you by The Dive. I'm Patton.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
Merry, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you're celebrating today. Thanks for being with us as we get set for the Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders from Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. right here on 104.7 The Cave. This afternoon at noon, the Chiefs pregame show is about 35 minutes away. Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts, Joe Westen. Show's brought to you by The Dive. I'm Patton. If you've got a question or comment, please text that to us at 417-863-7104. That's 863-7104. It is bowl season, Ned.
Oh, yeah. Gosh,
It's your favorite time of year.
Only 43 of them.
Yeah.
This is absurd. It really is. Many of these schools, in all honesty, well, back in the old days, they never would have made it. There weren't that many bowl
A lot of
games.
6-6 teams.
And with even one
Several
that's under
5 and
500.
7s.
Yeah, 5 and 7s are in there. And the fact is, that's not the way this should be an honor for these teams to be in there, and it's not. It's now expected. But I will say that the playoff system, which is going to be, it comes to an end with the 4 games this year and goes to 12 next year. I want to see how that changes things and people's mindset toward what happens. Now, this year, the Final Four will be a week from today, and that's when they'll play the semifinals, a week from today, New Year's Day, and there'll be some great games. It'll be the Rose Bowl, Alabama, Michigan, and then the Sugar Bowl, Texas, Washington, and these arguably are the top teams. Now, I say arguably because Florida State will have an argument against that, being an undefeated ball club. Georgia being number 1 all year long and knocked out of it. Ohio State being a top-level team that didn't make the Final Four. But they also have pretty good bowl games coming up. For instance, Ohio State plays later this week. And who do they play? Mizzou.
Yeah.
And they are an underdog to Mizzou by 2.5 points at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. That is Friday night is when they play. All right, the Ohio State team, other than the quarterback who has already gone in the transfer portal, this is their 1-year quarterback. This is the only year he played, and he has transferred to Syracuse, so he cannot play. But the others who've declared, when you declare for the portal, that doesn't mean that you can't play. It's a coach's discretion. Well, there's some others who have made a decision to come back, one of whom is Marvin Harrison. He is with the team. He is going to play in Dallas. One assumes he's going to suit up and play. He's with them for the Cotton Bowl. But their team, according to their coach Ryan Day, arrived, quote, intact, end quote. That's not inclusive of the quarterback. They're going to play a kid named Brown. I think it's Devin Brown, who this year's quarterback beat out on the last week of practice. So this kid can probably play the game pretty well, and he's played in a few of them this year. I think Ohio State's pretty good, folks. I do think Missouri is pretty good. I think that will be a really good football game, and I wouldn't sell or make any kind of prediction as to what's going to happen because sometimes these games get out of hand. There's also another one that's a very good, and that's Penn State Ole Miss, and that will be a very good football game, a good bowl game. Those are among the few that, in my opinion, are very good. A couple I'm anxious to see, of course, the semifinals. And then the Fiesta Bowl. Fiesta Bowl game has Oregon. Oregon is very good against Liberty. You guys familiar with Liberty?
Yeah,
Liberty was
undefeated Liberty.
this year.
They were. And this is the first test of the reason that they're taking the playoff system to 12 teams. It's to give the ones that aren't big names a shot at going up against the big-timers. Well, this will be a test as to what happens. So, oh, my God, Liberty doesn't stand a chance. Oh, yes, they do. They're a pretty good football team. And Boise State didn't stand a chance against Oklahoma 10 years ago.
And ran them out of the building.
They did. Beat them.
Well,
beat them in overtime, but that's all right. They did win the game.
Liberty's RPI is the lowest in the country. I think there's 141 teams, and they're at 141.
Wow, that's
So they didn't play anybody to go undefeated this year. So that should be pointed out. And Oregon's a very, very good football team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Oregon run them just right out of the stadium.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's the Fiesta Bowl.
I'm most curious. My whole thing with Florida State is, yes, I understand you guys are upset and you have every right to be upset. So go out and beat the crap out of Georgia because that's who you're playing in your bowl game and show the nation that you were overlooked.
If Georgia has the we do give a damn attitude, that won't happen. Georgia will win it. But Georgia is very, very, very good football team, which tells you how good Alabama is.
There's some really interesting bowl matchups as we get towards
Oh yeah,
the big, the big name games. I mean, the Cotton Bowl with Mizzou and Ohio State, that one's just exciting. There's also, as you mentioned, the Georgia-Florida State game. I mean, that's got a huge amount of implications to it. The Liberty-Oregon game. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how all this is shook out this year. And if it shakes out the same way next year, I think it'll be a great bowl season to watch this playoff develop as it goes through.
The way it works, Joe, too, is that the playoff next year, which is 12 teams, the first games, which is, I believe, 5, they're ranked. They're all seeded 1 through 12. The top 4, I think, get a first-round bye. The top 6 conference champions, they get an automatic berth, but not necessarily a bye. I think it goes 5-12, 6-11, 7-10, and so forth through the first
that makes
week.
Sense.
And they play on the home field of the top-seeded team. Then it goes to the bowl games, and they have the bowls paired out, rose, sugar, orange, and peach, I think, is also included in that group. So it does have a formula to it, but it all ends up with the championship game, which will be 1 week later in the season. For instance, this year's championship is a week from tonight.
It's on the 8th.
The
actual
8th.
national championship is Monday the 8th.
That's right.
Yeah, because
Which
the
is 2 weeks.
semifinals are both on the 1st.
2 weeks from tonight is when that'll be. Then the semifinals, of course, come up on New Year's Day. So, again, it has a rhythm to it and a formula. I'm anxious to see how this works because it'll be an interesting test for next season.
Yes, it really, really will be. And it's a lot of good football, a lot of good college football for us to take in, and some not so great college football that's been going on in the bowl games.
The bowl games.
So we had a terrible game yesterday with Eastern Michigan getting blown out.
59-0, is that what?
And then there was a fight at the end of the game. That was like the highlight of that game was there was a huge fight at the end of that game.
Really?
Over being blown out, yes.
Somebody was angry.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any of the bowl games yet because none of the teams have really interested me that much. None of the matchups. The ones coming up do. I'm going to watch all of from the 29th on. I'm going to watch them all.
And you'll find some good football, too. And I'll tell you where you'll also find good football is the FCS championship game.
Oh, yeah.
That's at Frisco. That's the day before the national championship game. That's South Dakota State and Montana. And like we mentioned last week, Missouri State plays both of them next year. Both those teams.
Yikes.
Let's go back to something you said earlier that has kind of stunned me. We talk a lot about the transfer portal, which is this deal that the players can get into and transfer to another program without any ramifications or implications. Why would you transfer from Ohio State to Syracuse?
Because the quarterback was he won a really tough player-to-player battle to get that starting position, and he quarterbacked his team well. This is Kyle McCord, his name is, and he was good. He wasn't great. He wasn't Stroud or anybody like that who Ohio State has had in the past, but he did get the starting position. Well, toward the end of the year, he said to his coach, Ryan Day, well, am I the starting quarterback for next year? And Coach Day said, well, not necessarily. We'll put you in another head-to-head battle. Nope, I'm out of here.
Wow.
And that was quoted. He said, nope, I don't want to go through another series like that, so I'm going to transfer. And Syracuse, which, well,
they're a basketball school.
They are ACC in basketball and football, and better in basketball than they are in football. They went to a bowl game, one of these under bowl games, and got belted hard. So you have to wonder, well, he's going to start there, and he'll be the star, and he won't have to beat out anybody. Well, number one, you question the motivation behind a kid who wants to do that. And number two, you do understand the reason why. He doesn't want to have to go through a head-to-head battle and maybe not be guaranteed the shot. Well, each to his own. I don't like that mentality at all.
All right, Ned, when we're going to a commercial break, and while we're in the break, you're going to have to explain to me how somebody can be a seventh-year player in college football. I'd really like to have that explained to me because I don't understand that at all. If you've got something to talk, and we do have a text here. We'll get to that when we come back from the break. It's Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
20 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show right here on 104.7 The Cave, your home for the Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. Until then, you have us, Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show brought to you by The Dive on patent. And we did get a text question, guys. This is from Anonymous. Please sign your text so we know who we're talking to. Again, if you want to text us, it's 417-863-7104. The question is, fellas, the Chargers gave the Bills a solid run. Why would you say this will be an easy win? Well, Herbert's out. They fired their coach. They fired their general manager.
Let's define this. What is he talking about?
When the Chiefs play
Chiefs
them.
playing
When
next
the Chiefs play them, yeah.
Which in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks, anything can happen, of course, with injuries and so forth. That's the National Football League. But I do think Kansas City is substantially better than the Chargers. The Chargers don't play with a lot of consistency. They have the capabilities, but they haven't played well.
Yeah. And I think that's the real difference when you look at teams in the National Football League. The teams that are really good play at a very consistent level.
That's just it.
And they finish games, and I think that's the problem with the Chargers is they may play well, but they don't finish the game.
And you could probably make the same argument that the Chiefs don't play very consistently now, but they play inconsistently at a higher level than the Chargers do. So that's the reason why we all agree on that.
And I hope
Thanks for your question. We do appreciate it.
From my friend Tom Neal, who's a diehard Chargers fan.
Yeah. And we do appreciate your questions. So keep them coming in. We love getting that. Let's turn our attention to baseball and the fact that the Dodgers have spent over $1 billion.
That's with a B.
$1 billion this offseason. They signed Yamamoto. And one of the reasons they were able to sign Yamamoto, first of all, let's just say this. He's never pitched Major League Baseball.
And therein lies a very key point that not a whole lot of people have brought up. Yes, he is a major threat in the Japanese league. He won their equivalent of the Cy Young Award 3 times, and the guy's only 25 years old.
Wow.
And he's keep in mind now, this is a big gamble by the Dodgers.
12 years.
At 12-year contract at $375 million or whatever the sum was. The fact is, though, he's not very big. He's 5'10", but he throws the ball very hard. He's a flamethrower with the scouts say, a big break to his changeup, et cetera, et cetera. Again, my argument to that is, but he hasn't played against the top-notch competition. Yes, the Japanese Professional Baseball League is much better from what it used to be, but still not Major League Baseball. No. And you're not facing consistent top hitters. Well, I'll be anxious to see what he does and whether or not this is a gamble. Now, with Shohei Ohtani, that's not a gamble. This guy's proven himself time and time and time again. So, yes, I think the money that he earned as a free agent, which is $700 million, $700 million on his way to $1 billion, is probably worth it, and he'll be a big drawing card for the Dodgers and probably help them do another over 100-win season. But Yamamoto is, I think, probably a major question mark. I'll be anxious to see, and not being negative, just anxious to see what he can do.
I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, the Dodgers are going to regret both those contracts, and I believe the Yankees are going to regret the Juan Soto trade. I believe that deep inside myself, that those will be regretful deals. Okay, Tim was the one that sent us that message. He chimed in and said, thanks, guys, and said, oops, my name is Tim, and we have another question. So I'm very excited about this, Ned. This is working out. Merry Christmas to all of you. Josh Jacobs is actually out today. Do you think that it is a coincidence?
I must admit, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
he was listed as in the last I saw.
He's out now. And do you think it's a coincidence that Mahomes gets upset with Tony, and Tony is on the injured list this week? I think we kind of touched on that earlier. But none of us really feel that is a coincidence.
I mentioned that.
That's from Billy, by the way.
You have a hip injury, Kadarius. I do? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're hurt. You can't
exactly.
play.
Well, hey, you're out this week with that injury. What?
No, I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I think that's exactly why it happened, because he didn't show any signs of injured. He showed signs of drop the ball itis or whatever it is. I did not know that Josh Jacobs isn't going to play. Is that right? He's not in there?
Yeah, Josh, can you look that up for us and see real quickly? Thanks again for your text.
Listed,
We
he
do
was
really
listed as being active just a little while ago.
Yeah, we do appreciate your text messages. We do. And Merry Christmas to everybody that's out there with the phones in hand listening to us on the radio this morning. That number is 417-863-7104. Getting back to baseball and talking about all this money, there's still some big names out there that have to fall in place. Blake Snell has not signed anywhere yet. Montgomery has not signed anywhere yet. A lot of thought that he'll go back to the Yankees.
The big shot is Montgomery, and yes, I do think he will go to the Yankees if he doesn't decide to stay with the Texas Rangers, and I don't think he will. He would have made that decision before. Blake Snell is very interesting. He's capable. He's a Cy Young Award winner at one time. He can get things done if he is with the right team. Well, again, they're the big ifs and they're the big question marks, and how effective will they be? Did you see our old buddy from Springfield Cardinals, St. Louis Cardinals days, Jack Flaherty, signed? He's with the Detroit Tigers.
Yes, I saw that.
A one-year, $14 million contract with incentives. Well, Flaherty went to the Baltimore Orioles. A trade deadline deal with the Baltimore Orioles. Didn't stay with them. Why? Because he was 1-3. 1 win, 3 losses. Finished the year 8-9, and of those 8 victories, 7 of them came with the Cardinals. So the fact is, he never really impressed the Orioles people at all. Well, does that mean he's going to impress the Tigers people? Well, it'll be an upgrade, I guess, over what they had with their pitching chart. What's it say about
Josh Jacobs is listed as inactive.
Inactive for this game. Okay.
All right, thanks for letting us know about that.
Yeah,
that changes things a bit for their game plan.
What's the deal with Jack Flaherty? I mean, he at times has looked as though he is a dominant upper-level tier pitcher in Major League Baseball, and other times looks like his head's just
Do not know. I did interview him once when he was down here with the Springfield Cardinals. Seemed like a good enough guy. But, again, you just don't know what goes through an individual's soul when they're playing and how motivated they are. I would have to think as a professional athlete that he's very motivated, but hey, fact of the matter remains. The Cardinals dealt him, and now the Orioles have let him go as a free agent.
Another thing that was interesting, too, that I noticed, another former Cardinal, Matt Carpenter, traded to the Braves and then released by the Braves.
That's a procedural move.
Yeah.
That was to set the stage for somebody else to come in. Now, how that works, I'm not sure, but he's now, I think he's finished.
Interesting. What are the Cardinals? What do you think's on their radar at this point?
It has to be a pitcher.
Yeah.
It has to be a starting pitcher, one who is solid. Now, I know they have the others who they picked up, the older guys and so forth and so on, but they really need somebody who is a proven starter, a Blake Snell, somebody of that nature. I don't think they'll get him. I think the money's going to be too much, but there's still plenty of room to explore. They did have Jordan Montgomery last year, let him go. Maybe he's a candidate. But the money factor is really what makes a difference with those free agents. But that, in my opinion, is what the Cardinals need to at least get back into possible contention. This year, 20 games under 500. That's not possible contention.
Are you surprised that things have played out as slowly as they have with Major League Baseball?
Well, a little bit, yes. I thought really when Ohtani signed his mega bucks contract with the Dodgers that would really open up the flow. But then again, Joe, you have to understand we're in the holiday season now, and things do traditionally slow down after the first of the year when the whole world begins to get active again and we get back into the swing of things and the routine and so forth. I do think you'll see the free agent market at least open up.
All right, when we come back, we'll have our picks as we're just about to hit the top of the hour, which means the start of the Chiefs pregame show. It's Ned Talk right here on 104.7 The Cave, brought to you by The Dive. I'm Patton.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
5 minutes away from the start of the Chiefs pregame show right here in your home for the Kansas City Chiefs in Southwest Missouri, 104.7 The Cave. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts. We're brought to you by The Dive. I'm Patton. Thanks to everybody that texted in messages and comments today. Really appreciate it. Now it is that time once again where we pull out our crystal balls and we make our predictions. Our crystal balls have been cracked most of the season. Make our predictions for the game
cloudy
today. So we'll start with you, Mr. Reynolds. What do you see happening with the Chiefs and the Raiders today?
It looks as though, judging by the weather map, that it's going to be dry in terms of precipitation coming down. It won't be dry from what's happened the last couple of days, but it's going to be cold. Now, cold is relative. It's going to be cool up there, cloudy. Conditions should be pretty good for football. I did not, as I must admit to you, did not realize that Jacobs had been ruled inactive because on the previous list that I had seen just, 3 hours ago, that he was going to play. Without Josh Jacobs in there, I do think Las Vegas is at a major subtraction to their attack. All right, having said all that, I think the Raiders will play well. Aiden O'Connell will probably get the start in this game. I think he can have some success against the Chiefs, but I think it's the Chiefs who have more success. Kansas City needs this win, and I do think they will win. I'm going to pick Kansas City to win somewhere maybe in the neighborhood of 30 to, we'll make it a similar score to what they won by in Vegas, 30-17.
What do you think, Josh?
I think it'll be a close game because it's a rivalry game, and you're going to get the best that the Raiders can put up. And it is unfortunate that Jacobs is out because that is a major part of their offense. But I think this will be a fairly close one. I think I'm going to say 24-20 Chiefs.
Yeah, just came across right now on Bleacher Report. Pacheco in, Jacobs and Tony out today. The full list is available to see. We'll try.
What did they say about Chris Jones?
Chris Jones, I haven't seen. Let me.
He was ill, and it wasn't an injury. He was ill over the weekend, but I would suspect as tough as he is and as much as he wants to play in these big games, that he'll probably be in there. But he did have a sickness.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's a flu.
Let me try to pull this up really quickly. This is live radio, folks. So we're just trying to keep you up to date on all the latest information. And it's still, let's see, the whole list. Is it coming up here? Nope, it's not coming out. Inactives today: Brian Hoyer, Josh Jacobs, Grisou, Brandon Parker, Jesper Horsted, Michael Mayer, the tight end, and defensive tackle Brian Young, all out for the Raiders today. It says, not finding what the Chiefs' final tally is on who's out for the game. Inactives, here it is: Kadarius Toney, Nick Jones, B.J. Thompson, Donovan Smith, Neil Farrell, Matt Dickerson, and Malik Harino are all out today for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think practice squad players.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and of course the names that we mentioned earlier, Jerick McKinnon is out for the rest of the season. We don't know when Hardeman will be back. I haven't heard anything about him.
His is a thumb injury, and it's supposed to be pretty close to being healed.
Well, that will be a big boost if they can get him back and he can actually be a part of the attack for the Chiefs.
Yeah, that would be a big get for him to be healthy.
Because I think that Patrick Mahomes does have some confidence in him. And
You're avoiding the issue, Joe.
What's that?
We haven't gotten your prediction yet.
Oh, okay. All right. I think this will be a blowout for the Chiefs today.
Oh, nice.
I think you're going to see the inconsistent Raiders. I think that they'll come out here to Kansas City. The weather will not be to their suiting or liking because they are very much a West Coast warm weather team, and I think the Chiefs will just blow them out. So I'm going to go 35-10. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be some wailing and gnashing of teeth during the first part of the game, but I do think that in the end, the Chiefs will dominate this one and win it easy. Once again, I'd like to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. Ned, real quick, you got anything you want to say?
When are we on next week?
We are on sometime next week. We're on.
It's 1 o'clock.
We're on at 1 o'clock next week.
It's a 3:30 game up in Kansas City, the Chiefs and the Bengals. So it's 1 o'clock next week on our show, and then to be determined right now for the final regular season game.
Nice.
Okay. Josh, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Ned,
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Holidays.
Happy Holidays.
Want to say thanks to Nick Fury, Brian Tyndall, Corbin Campbell, the Mad Magician, and, of course, Mike the Intern. Enjoy the game right here on 104.7 The Cave. The Chiefs and the Raiders. Pre-game show coming up next.